We are back. We are back with more NBA coverage, and in this one, I'll be covering the game action that I watched on Tuesday. So to get straight into it, starting out with the Knicks and the Celtics for the 7:30 slot. Honestly, both teams came into this one scorching hot. The Knicks have been on a tear all their own. I think it mentioned that they won like 10 of their last 14 or so. And the Celtics were also surging at the right time. Granted, of course, with their litany of injuries, namely to Jason Tatum, it was going to be a rough start to the season for them. But they've turned it around. And the Knicks, with their relentless energy, overall, they've found a way to rally back and kind of assert themselves as a legitimate contender in the Eastern Conference. It's what the goal has been all along. And do whatever you can, even if the field, from your standpoint, may be a little weaker. Now would be the perfect time to take advantage and continue to keep that going, hopefully, against a rival in which this Boston-New York series has now been one of the more prolific game totals overall in NBA history. They've played a little over, I think, 500 matches between each other, going all the way back to the very start of the NBA in 1947. Like, it stretches that far back, and no matter what conference the teams have been in, no matter what their mascot has been, it's just been a consistent dogfight between the two organizations. This game would prove to be no different, although it would start out in the cleanest way for them. The Knicks, as a collective, they were just catching the Celtics off guard. You had Keita, for example, guarding guards out on the perimeter on multiple occasions. Like, one of these shots put it all into perspective. No, Josh Hart is not a dribbler by any means, but the fact that he could find himself getting open in the corner at multiple points, which has proven to be a killer for some teams this season, and then also take Neemias Queta off the dribble and get a three-pointer on him. Those kind of shots were going in for the Knicks, and the Celts couldn't do anything about it. To open the game, they gave up a 17-4 run. They were just flat out getting theirs on this damn defense the entire time. And it was crazy. Like, yes, the Celtics had a few responses in them, but the second chance opportunities were still prevalent. Yet, with the looks that the Knicks were getting on some occasions, like Karl Anthony Towns, for example, had multiple cases where he just gets a smaller body in the post, and he doesn't always take advantage of those opportunities. So it was cool to see him get into a little bully ball here and take advantage of those matchups when they came through. As the quarter progressed, the Celts did kind of bounce back. The Knicks themselves got a little sloppy. Like, Keita crept backdoor for a lob, and no Knicks defender was even remotely anywhere near the ball. That was just made way too easy. But those lapses didn't really happen all that much, and it didn't cost them, this early on at least. The Celtics, though, would start to get more of a stride going as some of their bench guys come in. Your Anthony Simons and your Josh Minots, who would become a core player for them, actually. I mean, you aren't always expecting a ton out of him, but what he has consistently done, even in Minnesota at times, is consistently be a sort of spark plug off the bench, and he did that for them at numerous points, especially when it came to how he was holding Jalen Brunson in check. You see, for a majority of this game, even with Josh Hart having 11 first quarter points, and even with Karl Anthony Towns getting himself 9 second quarter points, Jalen Brunson was not heard from a lot. And yes, the Knicks had a few advantages in holding the Celtics to a lower percentage, of course, forcing a number of turnovers and getting a high disparity on them, and continuing to get solid defensive play from none other than Mikal Bridges, who would actually have the 14th longest Ironman streak in NBA history at 576 consecutive games. Like, you want to talk about durability. It's crazy, man. The fact that it's still gone, like, who knows if that would really change. You can always count on him being as healthy as possible and ready to play in any given game. And that would definitely be crucial, pivotal for this New York team down the stretch of the season. But legitimately, Jalen Brunson was not finding his footing in this one. You know, he will certainly be a player who wants to slow the game down and get to his own spot in the post and make things happen. But with the way that they kind of had Manat guard him single-handedly and then also send help at points, he never got comfortable with doing that at any particular point in this one, to be completely honest with you. And so at that point, you have to rely on other guys. Tyler Kolek would get himself a bucket, sure, but the things started to slip. Hugo Gonzalez came back in for the Celtics and immediately started wrecking the game. Plus, you had Jaylen Brown on the other hand. And what was promoted to be a battle between those two, it slowly became the Jaylen Brown show. Like, no, he wasn't getting any hairspray on people this time, but he was just steadying the course the whole way through. And then he just fucking exploded out of nowhere, hitting bucket after bucket, getting himself some dunks in, getting some clean shots over defenders in the mid-range, and then also getting himself and one bucket in about the same time span. All of this resulting in what would be a 15-4 Celtics run. And he would finish the second quarter himself with 18 points in the period. Like, there was just a complete shift in energy from the Celtics here. They were able to force the Knicks into 6 second quarter turnovers. And they just kept on getting their fair share of threes here, which is always going to help them out. All of a sudden, the Celts, they got off to a slow start. They were right back in it. This game was far from done. In the third quarter, oh man, if we thought that was the best that Jaylen Brown had to offer in the game, the third quarter would be a deeper main course, if you can call it that. They just could not stop the man. And it became very key for them, the Knicks, to win the non-Jaylen Brown minutes. Because whenever he was on the floor, his impact was all around. Like, so much attention was being focused on him, that didn't always matter because he's that great of a player to where he can create his own look and generate his own offense. It also opened up the floor for so many different guys like Josh Minot to get their own contributions in. And Anthony Simons continues to be an intriguing piece off the bench. Honestly, with the way that he kind of approaches the game, I guess this is something that might suit him at the moment. Like, I don't know. Sure, having him as a starter in Portland, for the way their team was constructed, probably wasn't the worst thing in the world. But for this Celtics team, to have a player like that come off the bench for you and be able to provide that kind of offensive output could be helpful. It is just a matter of how efficient he's going to be on a given night. And the Knicks continuing to have their Jaylen Brunson struggles while also just completely cratering offensively down the stretch would allow a 12-0 Celtics run to end off the third quarter. All threes in quite literally the last 2 minutes of the game. It's just a flurry from a team effort. Yeah, we see Steph Curry get the flurries going. Well, you can't stop something like that. It was insane to watch. And it felt at that point that the Celtics had done everything in their power to put this game on ice. Well, despite Jaylen Brunson struggling, Karl-Anthony Towns continued to contribute, being a steady read for the offense early in the fourth quarter. But man, when they needed it the most, despite Jaylen Brown having a 15-point third quarter, the Knicks had their own ace up their sleeve in relying on Mikal Bridges, especially towards the halfway mark of the fourth quarter and beyond. I mean, first of all, the man literally contributes to an early three-point shot, gets a flagrant three-pointer drawn, and proceeds to make all three of his free throws. And then in that same sequence, you get a 2-for-1 and 1 with Karl-Anthony Towns taking it right at the cup for a 6-point play. And this game, mind you, was a 12-point one when that whole sequence started. So they were already off to a very great initiating sequence here. And once Bridges cashed in this other three, they had no choice but to call a timeout. They proceed to finish out a 12-0 run. And it felt like at every point, even with Jordan Walsh in this particular quarter as well, down the stretch, making hustle play after hustle play for this damn Boston team, it kept on giving them a slight advantage. But Mikal Bridges was still so damn clutch for them in this game that it did not matter whatsoever. Even when they were down by 7, hits a three-pointer. And they force a turnover. Like the Celtics, literally in the playoff series, were in the same position. And Bridges was about to try to get it done on both sides of the ball. I could not blame Mike Brown for dialing up a three-point play for him at that point. He was scorching hot. 17-point fourth quarter at that time. You got to roll with the high hand. And he barely missed it. Unfortunately, that would end the game, essentially in a nutshell, with the Celtics winning it 123-117. Man, absolute dogfight. I mean, there is obviously an advantage for the Celts in terms of points in the paint, but outside of that, like, along with a slightly better overall shooting performance, man, the game was relatively even between both of these ball clubs. But the Celtics were able to, with that damn third quarter run they had, get enough of an advantage on them. And it still wasn't enough to put the Knicks to rest. But you can say that, hey, all of their efforts towards the very end led to the lead here. As I said, it was the Jaylen Brown show. For the numbers, he had 42 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists with a steal on 16 of 24 shooting. Derek White had 22 points and 5 assists on 8 of 16 shooting with 4 threes. Anthony Simons had 12 points and 3 assists off the bench on 5 of 9 shooting. Josh Minot had 11 points and 6 rebounds, along with a block off the bench on 4 of 6 shooting with 3 threes. Peyton Pritchard had 10 points on 4 of 13 shooting. He's seen better days, but that's still all good. Pretty much everybody that took the court for the Celtics, aside from Baylor Shireman and also Amari Williams. Yeah, Amari Williams. I didn't know he played for any time in this. They're just saying he logged a minute. I wonder when, honestly, they may not feel comfortable with getting him in there right now. But I don't know. I'd want to see it. He seems like a big man that they would kind of need to change pace with Queta at the moment. That could help. That's all I'd say there. But, maybe they don't want to give him too many chances too early on. As for the Knicks, Mikal Bridges, 35 points and 6 rebounds with 3 assists on 12 of 17 shooting and 8 fucking three-pointers. Karl Anthony Towns had 29 points and 7 rebounds with 2 assists on 12 of 19 shooting and 2 threes. Josh Hart had 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists on 7 of 11 shooting with 4 threes. And again, it's a promising sign for the Knicks to still be in this game. That just shows you how well constructed they truly are, honestly, and just how much firepower they truly possess. But some times it's going to be the case where Jalen Brunson is going to be the one to get the engine to take off for the team. And with a 15-point outing on 6 of 21 shooting, now granted he did have 11 assists, but that is a rough shooting night to say the least. And ultimately that single-handedly affected them. I don't know, just anything more efficient, and this could have been totally flip-sided, but alas, that wasn't the case. So there isn't really much you can do about it now. All right, and then moving on to the Thunder and the Warriors, and we understand what's up with the Thunder this season. They are a team of they literally have one of the 4 best starts by any team in NBA history ever in terms of record through 21 games coming into this. And most of those teams had gone on to win championships. Obviously, the Warriors in 2016 did not. And obviously, this season has just started compared to those outcomes. So that would still be determined eventually. There's no way of ensuring that right now, but they look like they are running like a fucking machine. They can't be stopped. They can't be stopped. And a lot of those things almost ended up happening in this game. You see, the Warriors were already down Stephen Curry and Al Horford in this game. So this was naturally going to be a tough one. And I don't know, some of the stuff early in this one was just head scratching. For example, the offense was so slow-paced. So predictable. And it played right into the Thunder's hands for a team that loves to get out in transition, turn you over, and get high percentage looks. Time and time again, that's exactly what happened. You had A.J. Mitchell getting out, running, and getting easy buckets at the cup. You had Cason Wallace continuing to be a defensive ace for this team. In fact, I think he was named Defensive Player of the Month last month for the Western Conference. Think about that. The whole team is chock full of elite defenders at their respective position. At the very least, if you're in the Warriors' position, you'd want to make them work for it. And it just felt way too easy for them. Way too easy. I mean, dude, like, not to mention, you have Draymond Green just committing to some gas. Like, there was one situation, he's trying to stay upright, and he just fucking slips and falls. He also got himself in early foul trouble. So that definitely helped a ton. Like, I'm literally, as this play is about to happen, I'm noting, you cannot half-ass your defense. And this nigga, Draymond Green, on cue, proceeds to smack the shit out of Jalen Williams in transition and get himself a foul. It's like, damn, like, come on, dude. You just can't make it up. Like, oh my goodness. Like, I did not mean the shit like that. Like, he's gotta understand at this point. Honestly, at his age, man, he probably doesn't even care. he doesn't care. It never stops. It's got to, but you try telling him that, I suppose. I don't know. At the very least, the Warriors could say that in this first quarter, they had a fair amount of responses in them. Pat Spencer was able to get himself a bucket, and you had Buddy Hield also get a few shots off the bench for a few makes in this. Yet the fucking Thunder are so deep, they had Brandon Carlson making fucking shots off the bench. I don't know. At least it was competitive in that quarter. But as the Thunder do, man, they can, like, we want to talk about Ohio State style offenses and how they could heat up pretty quickly. Yeah, this got out of hand really quick. Now, it did not help that even though Jimmy Butler III would have a solid start to the second quarter, he would be taken out with injury. Fair enough. But a lot of those offensive struggles persisted. And for minutes on end, man, the Warriors just were suffocated completely between mindless turnovers, between wave of missed shots. Aside from, Seth Curry getting himself a few buckets in this. Fair enough. But still, man, like, they were just so far out of it. And the Thunder, as a collective, were truly starting to assert themselves as the superior team in this one. You had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander get a few buckets here and there early in the game, but he was still held to a relatively quiet pace in this one before all shit hit the fan. I mean, they would manage to get this game within 11. And then, in a matter of less than a full 2 minutes, to end off the half, man. Because overall, they had a 28-15 run throughout the second quarter, with Aaron Wiggins having 9 second quarter points. And also, you want to know just how high percentage some of these shots were for OKC? At a point on the graphic that was displayed on the broadcast, for around the first 8 minutes of the second quarter, the Thunder were shooting 75% from the field. 75%. While getting a number of extra possessions off of these forced turnovers. Insanity. And it would still get worse because the Thunder would then proceed to go on an 8-0 run to finish the fucking... they would go on an 8-0 run to finish out the half. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went on an 8-point personal run, and it probably would have been a little more if not for him getting a wedge. And for a person who tends to be expressionless, he was so beside himself that he missed the free throw and had it just hang in the back of the rim. And weirdly enough, this would not be a tremendously accurate game from him from the free throw line. He did actually miss quite a few shots. But he definitely went that one back. Nevertheless, by that point, the Thunder were already up by 19, and to start out the third quarter, it got as great as 22. However, for a Warriors team, despite some of the recent narratives in the last couple of seasons, under Steve Kerr, they've always been a team that does tremendously well in the third quarter. While the Thunder this year love to blow teams out and get their starters on the bench by the end of the third quarter because of how much of a margin they have on virtually every other team they faced off against. Keep on hearing the stat saying that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has sat out in 14 different fourth quarters to start out this season. Yet, still, they showed a graphic as we got later on into the game that he leads the league in clutch points. It's wild. Whatever you throw at them, for the most part, it feels like they're going to have an answer for everything. And that shows you just how versatile the team truly is. At pretty much every single position, every single player they have on the roster. No Hardenstein in this one. They didn't skip a beat at all. They can make different schemes work with any assortment of different players and be just fine. Yet, for a while in this game, they could not crack the code on a zone defense that the Warriors started to implement. Those zone defenses are going to force you, depending on what you want to do, they're going to force you to shoot the ball. You're not getting a lot of backdoor cuts if you stay home and watch those zones. Now, there were points in this stretch where the Thunder were able to take advantage of one-on-one matchups against weaker players down low on the defensive end. But it rattled the Thunder a lot in this third quarter. I don't know. They were starting to get some weird turnovers themselves. Mistakes that they don't usually make for being one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant and best team by record in the NBA this season, right? They've made a name for themselves doing this to other squads. Now they were on the receiving end of it. And, if you're the Warriors in the situation, it was working defensively, but you still have to respond. And boy, they would respond mightily. Everybody contributed. And that's always been the model, strength in numbers. You got it from everybody. Whether it was Draymond Green when he was actually trying to play basketball. Continuing to be a good facilitator, getting some easy backdoor cuts as well. And the whole offense started generating high quality and fundamental looks at every turn. It was Gary Payton II getting open for three-point shots. It was Brandon Pajemski continuing to be somewhat of an offensive threat in what is a career-high season for him in scoring at the moment, obviously. It'll remain to be seen down the line if he can maintain that pace. Buddy Hield was getting some looks. Jonathan Kuminga was being a bully on the boards, playing some solid defense, and also settling into being a solid facilitator as well. And that's been one of the questions surrounding him, about how he'd consistently want to have isolation possessions and how that could hurt the Warriors' offense at times. Well, the balance between him being passive and aggressive, even if he didn't always figure it out eventually, it got this game tremendously close. All of that from the team, including Pat Spencer. Pat Spencer pulling out fucking post moves and getting contested buckets over Chet Holmgren, of all people, in the restricted area. Things like that you're not expecting this team to pull off. Seth Curry would get a bucket, and also, fittingly, to end off the quarter, you have Brandon Podziemski following a different score from the Thunder, getting himself a running three-point jump shot just like that. And all of a sudden, we went from a 22-point ball game to having the Warriors put up what would be a 37-17 run in this quarter at one point, while also having 44 points as a team. And this was a 3-point ball game. Let me find out. They were actually giving themselves a chance to win this game. And the fourth quarter just kept that going. I mean, you had a balance of just great offensive makes from Seth Curry. Oh, man, I cannot wait for... Yeah, that's going to be some fun, man. But nonetheless, you had responses from both teams being followed up by defensive resistance at every point. And while the Warriors would briefly take the lead, with Draymond Green even extending it to as high as 4, they were just not able to, at the right moments, get enough consistency down the stretch as it became clutch time to put this game away. And this is where the inevitability of the Thunder can kick in at times. They face a run like that, and you think that even with the momentum being that high, while there may be a chance to take them down, they're never out of a game. They're never out of a game with what they can force different teams to do. They resorted the Warriors back into a sort of slower paced offense. And that's by design. Players are going to dictate. At the end of the day, when you get in these situations, these clutch moments, schemes aren't everything. Sometimes it is truly just about having one player take over. And that is literally what the broadcast team kept on trying to figure out. Could any one player, even if it's by committee, just one player, take over the mantle and force the action to keep that Oklahoma City defense working and generate good offense for themselves? Not for a lack of effort. And they still were somewhat close in this, but it just got to a point where they were just outlasted by this team. And although it was a valiant effort, the Thunder would win against the Warriors 124-112. What I will say is this, because I believe the first game they had against each other earlier in the season did not go so hot, if I'm not mistaken. Nevertheless, man, you have to keep it fair. Yes, the Thunder now at that point would be 21-1 overall. There's no doubt. If you can't admit to yourself that they aren't the top team, they are in fact the top team in the league, I should say, by most metrics. If you still want to be a delusional fan, just trying to hate and say that, they're frauds, they're not that good. Yeah, okay. Good luck with that. Good luck with that, man. Just clearing ahead above the rest of the competition, and it's not even close. Think about this. This comeback by the Warriors as great as it was to see, and you have to give them all the respect too. Doing that without your best franchise player, with Jimmy Butler III going down, as a man who literally turned the entire team into a bit of a rejuvenated factory towards the tail end of last season. And then Al Horford as well, pretty much the most sound center you have, despite a bit of a smaller frame, is impressive. It is. Come on now. You can't discredit that at all. Again, it's a matter of consistency with that. But man, that shows a tremendous amount of promise, even if it results in a loss. Still, the Thunder would not be dealing with that for the first time this season. This was not the very first instance of that. Do you not remember that this same team got taken into back-to-back multiple overtime games to start out the year, and they still came out virtually unaffected? Like I said, you can throw everything at them possible, and you can have them down for just a moment, and they'll still, as a unit, figure out a way to overcome that. That is a testament to the leadership amongst the players that they have going on, and that is also a testament to the system that Mark Daigneault has running this damn team right now. It's just honestly amazing. It hasn't stopped. 13-game winning streak is currently the longest in the league, and that is not even close. Man. Now, it is worth mentioning, they would make note of this as the game came to an end and as they had on the post-game show for it. The schedule does get a little more difficult for the Thunder progressively, and they have the hardest remaining schedule left. They do still have some volleyball. They do have some easy layups mixed in there. But one of their next few matchups in a matter of a few weeks or so is against the Spurs in a sort of series. And by that point, I would expect him, Wembanyama, of course, to make that even more competitive for the Spurs and definitely make it difficult on the Thunder to even win that game or those games collectively. Not to mention that they're probably going to have a few other players come back. I did see that Dylan Harper was back for the Spurs as well. So that could be an intriguing matchup. But man, you look around the league and it's even with legitimate pro players, some of the best to ever do it, currently playing alongside them, they still, as a 5-man, as a 15-man squad, have that much of a jump on everybody else. And it is just getting started. Between what they can continue to do this season and the vault that they still possess, it's crazy, man. Truly. Into a few more developments here. Stephen Curry is most likely, depending on how he's reevaluated, they were going to do this at some point today then, given the fact that he was injured in the Rockets game with a quad contusion, and I guess he was set to miss at least a week. They have to reevaluate him. I'm not sure if he's available for the game tonight that they have against the 76ers, but I guess I'll be tracking that at some point, seeing if that is the case or not. Landry Shamet is going to miss at least the next 4 weeks with a right shoulder sprain. To be honest, as much as I would consistently drag on him as a player, man, when you are in a microwave position and you are finding your hot streak, you want to do everything in your power to keep that going. When I say that Landry Shamet had been on a heater, he, truly, one of the better stretches that he's ever had in his damn career. And before he can even fully capitalize off of it, you just get your momentum disrupted like that. It is absolutely tough to see that be the case. You really don't like that. Because, the opportunities were going to be there sparingly for Landry Shamet. But he'd worked his way up into becoming a starting caliber player at times. When they were missing a few players. And at the very least, he's now earned a bit more trust from the coaching staff. Yet, he'll have to wait a while to pick back up where he left off. Highly unfortunate. Danilo Gallinari would retire from the NBA. He was actually playing basketball in an overseas league and happened to retire from there. They mentioned essentially he has been, at least 20 overall years of basketball exposure as a player. And after all that time, he decides to call it a career. Gallinari is quite the interesting player. This is going to be a guy that will not be regarded as good enough to make any Hall of Fame particularly, but, he had a few interesting stops in a few different places. The Knicks, I don't know about that. But for his time in Denver or his time with the Clippers and then the Thunder, man, even as he was getting older at that point, he was actually somewhat of a decent piece for those teams. As a bigger player who could stretch the floor in an era where this would be the defining element of a few different teams' identities and eventually the entire league in having big men that could shoot. Although he was technically listed as a small forward for a good number of his years. He could shoot the fucking ball. You can't deny that. It did tail off a little bit towards the tail end of his career, but he would finish his NBA career shooting 38.1% from deep. And also had 14.9 points per game, along with 4.7 rebounds per game and 1.9 assists per game. You knew you were going to get some quality shooting from him, regardless of whatever else he might have had to offer. He could get you a decent few buckets. His defense was never particularly that great. But he was serviceable enough to still find himself, on multiple teams across a number of different years. His last few stops were weird, though. And when you had this man move along to 3 different NBA teams in a single season, I didn't even really remember. It's not even something that I had in my mind. I did not know he was a Piston for 6 games in 2023, 2024. I know he was with the Wizards, and I know he was with the Bucks, but damn, he was with the Pistons at that time. No wonder I had absolutely no clue that was the case. So he'd become a little bit of a journeyman at that point, and with his numbers tailing off, he might have become a bit more expendable as a player in this current climate. So he's just been spending the rest of his playing career overseas, and I guess it might have just occurred to him that the game that he was once truly good at for his expected skill set is kind of eluding him at this point as age was getting up there. And at the very least, he was able to decide it on his own terms. Yes, he might not have been in the NBA anymore, but he could make his own independent decision and call it a career on his own volition. So you can definitely appreciate that from his perspective. And oh my goodness, wow. Zion Williamson is currently out with a right adductor injury, per a report from Sham Charania a few days back. It's just like it is like, oh my goodness. Like I just need to see this for my own sanity, okay? Because when was the last time he played? Let's just start there. When was the last game that he played in? Okay, it was the Warriors game. They lost it, and he honestly had a decent performance. And yet again, just when it looks like Zion is going to be somewhat healthy and somewhat ready to go to turn together a good chunk of games, his progress is just impeded by something of some sort. It is always something. And to have that kind of mindset at this point, we're hearing about Zion Williamson get injured so much that it's now to a few different people out there, even some Pelicans fans. Some of them may be thinking at this very moment, what's new? And that's sad for a person supposedly being labeled to be a franchise guy. Now he's out for the next 3 weeks, it says, to add to this. And it's like, yo, come on. It doesn't help that the Pelicans are already underwhelming as it is, but they do have a few guys playing pretty well, and it would help to have Zion Williamson out there alongside him to generate even more good looks, potentially, and be a complimentary player in times as well. You know, Jeremiah Fears has certainly been doing all right. Could you imagine him with pick and rolls with Zion Williamson? Could you imagine how much that would truly do for both parties? Instead, all you can really do about it is dream because you've rarely seen it. I mean, he's only played in 10 games to this point, and we're slowly getting further and further into the season. Like, it does kind of tie back to the 65 game rule in a way. And honestly, at that point, if you are the Pelicans, they haven't always had to worry about it with him. But I'm not going to lie. Like, you need the man fully healthy. Whether it's on his end or on the Pelicans' end, don't even worry about that 65 game rule. Because he's not going to be eligible in that case with the amount of time that he's already missed and is going to continue to miss. You just need him out on the floor as soon as possible. And as healthy as possible. Because a lot of these injuries, some of them are different for sure, but some of them are just being built off of similar things. Potential re-aggravations. Because for whatever reason, he is just not attending to this properly. Or it's not being accounted for properly by other individuals. And it makes no sense. Like, he still has got a lot in the table, but you can't even get him out there for enough time to start to establish some momentum as a team. And it's like, ultimately, where the hell does that leave you? Right in this exact position. It's terrible, man. All right. The NBA would fine Philadelphia $100,000 for violating injury reporting rules. Joel Embiid played in a game that the 76ers reported that he would miss. And as such, with what happened to the Cavs a little bit earlier in the year, you cannot have that false reporting, especially with the memo that they put out. They can't risk having stuff like that go down right now. So you gotta be accurate with your reports. Truly. You just have to. It is, there's no way around that. DeAnthony Melton is making his return. Of course, earlier last season, he tore his ACL, missed the entire season. Was actually doing some tremendous work with the Warriors, and then proceeded to have that happen, get cut and such. Well, now he's making his return. So he is also a player that is set to return in this 76ers game. Mr. Do Something is certainly going to be up to quite a lot, even if the numbers will not show it for him. That's going to be a nice addition to have. Truly. Devin Booker is set to miss at least a week with a right groin strain. I mean, the Suns are doing relatively well. This is your franchise player. You don't want him to miss any time at all. But at the same time, between what they're getting from Dillon Brooks, of all people, Mark Williams, Colin Gillespie, and Grayson Allen off the bench, chances are they're probably going to be just fine, just enough to not completely fall down to the wayside without Devin Booker being in there. Aside from the fact that you want a true point guard, probably, and I think Gillespie can give you that off the bench if need be, but he is probably the only guy on that team that could at least have the potential to facilitate and distribute to other players on the team at a high level. It's not something that I would expect from anybody else out there. I dare you to, as many shots as you're going to have Dillon Brooks chuck up, which again, just like, why the fuck is the offense like this? It's working too. I don't really know what to say about that. I dare you to have him handle the basketball and play point guard. I dare you to. It is not. Oh, boy, man. They're going to have a field day with that one. I'm going to tell you that right now. Before this news, well, I can just state it. So, Giannis, man, it's just, they're a whirlwind of different things going on with him. But most notably, Hersham Sharanya, he is set to miss at least the next 2 to 4 weeks with a right calf strain that he suffered in yesterday's game for the Bucks. And it's like, damn. Like a season in which he is kind of outpacing some of his earliest contributions from previous years is now going to be limited in yet another way. Like he literally just came off of a calf strain injury, if I'm not mistaken. He just came off of one. And now he's dealing with the same thing again, and he's going to miss even more time? That's devastating for the Bucks. It's just devastating. Like, as a team, they've been doing okay, and Ryan Rollins has been a friggin' dog for them. But they are still tremendously slipping, naturally, without their franchise star out there. Like, the sentiment is that, they still would very much need him at this point. But it poses a lot of questions, especially if he's suffering an injury like this again. Like, he's pretty much at this point like literally, as I'm recording this is just 2 days before his 31st birthday, and he's dealing with this. Not exactly on the wrong side of 31, in the ripe of his prime, but nonetheless, just smack that like that. It's on pause again. And now you, again, are at a crossroads in a way. Frankly, with other contexts, so is Giannis. You could risk a lot investing so much in him. Especially if things continue to go in that trajectory between him getting hurt and constantly dropping ball games without his full value being out there to lift up the team. In the same way, though, by forcing him out or having him leave, especially if you don't get anything back for him, which would be impossible regarding a trade. I mean, come on, it's Giannis at this point. Like, you should realistically get a haul for him. But I don't know. Are teams willing to embrace that as well? And are you truly ready for that right now? As constructed? What was the point of getting some of these other acquisitions if you take away the guy who completely gets them going? Like, at times, with him legitimately having a fucking 30-20-10 game. Like, or damn near that, I should say. He is the offense. He is the offense. And when you have a guy driving a team single-handedly like that, like, you better make sure, especially with a player who is as accomplished as Giannis is, you better make sure in the event that you even think about making a decision like that, you get enough back for him to make this somehow worth it. Although I would think that some Bucks fans as well, you have to factor this in too, they would never be able to live that down. Especially in the event of them losing such an exchange or potentially having Giannis walk, like there is a danger of happening in the offseason leading up to this, for essentially nothing in return. Like, worst possible outcome. But as I stated, even with that in mind, like, Giannis himself is also contemplating some things. I mean, it came down to the wire in the summer, and eventually he decided to come back. But I mean, tying it in with reports there, Shams Charania would essentially update stating that front office guys and Giannis Antetokounmpo had met discussing his potential future outlook, whether he was with the Bucks or not. I didn't really see that as breaking news because, again, context in the summer would suggest that, per other reports, the Knicks, if I remember correctly, they were actually having some solid conversations with Giannis. Eventually, it did not go through. But for a moment, Giannis was thinking about leaving the organization right then, right there. And I guess it's just been eating away at him between continuing to deal with a few injuries here and there, and then also seeing the team just underwhelm, just at least entertain some other alternatives. That didn't come as a surprise to me. But for that news to come out and then have Giannis deal with this right now in the middle of all that, it's like, oh my goodness. That is not a great sign at all. You hate to see it. And you also hate to see this. You know how I mentioned that Danilo Gallinari was, at the very least, able to make his own retirement decision with his own individual freedom. Unfortunately, Chris Paul, yes, that Chris Paul, did not have the same fate here. The Clippers, let go of him yesterday. They let him go. Just like that. Just like that. And it's like, wow. Wow. It's from the standpoint of production, it wasn't hard to understand why from that standpoint. And if more context hadn't been added over time, if we just got the idea that they cut him and were direct in making the decision, I don't really, I think people would still be upset that Chris Paul isn't getting his due as a player who was a franchise cornerstone for the Clippers for so long. Not getting his farewell tour, but at the very least, they'd understand that by all accounts this season, Chris Paul wasn't even playable, man. He was not his typical efficient self, and he was pretty much a net negative when he was out on the floor. He did not contribute any win shares, as I'm seeing here, to the team whatsoever. It was an abject disaster out there. So, with you letting him go in that event, with that context, mate, you're just freeing up a roster spot. You're trying to get a player who can perform better in that situation. Fine, no problem. But instead, as more information would come out, we quickly lose out on dreaming about that scenario. The report on it literally came from Chris Paul's own Instagram, saying that in the middle of a road trip, he was released from the team. So now that just makes it even more hurtful to a lot of different Clippers fans. This is Chris Paul coming back for his final season. And that got people so excited, especially when Media Day was rolling around. You don't even give a player who, again, lifted your franchise out of pretty much irrelevancy the second he got there, and for a number of years following that. I don't care how ugly it might have ended with him the first time. You treat him like that. You don't even give him the respect enough to go up man to man and tell him what your decision is. He's not even anywhere near these members, and they just make the executive decision that, he's gone. What kind of shit is that? It's wild. The reputation that he had with the team, the amount of time he's put into the league, we're talking about a 21-year veteran. Even if, he might not always get the credit that he deserves, seemingly at times. This is a man who has gone through many different career arcs and has still managed to be one of the best point guards in that era of basketball. Especially when it comes to his assists. The man is legitimately in the top 5 for all-time assists Nobody's catching Stockton. But that Chris Paul is up there in those conversations. That Chris Paul, especially earlier in his tenure, before things hit a bit of a roadblock, put his body and fucking heart for the team on display in these games. Full out passion, full out skill, trying to get this Clippers team to be a consistent threat in the Western Conference. And that just happens to be completely lost on you, and you treat him like he's nothing. I don't know about that. Even more context would be added. Now, I did not, I did see this from Shams Charania, but the actual, tweet itself was interesting to look at when I was actually just watching, Kenny's video on it. I will say that part of it, when it came to hearing from Chris B. Haynes, as it was talked about on that video, that Tyronn Lue hadn't spoken to Chris Paul in several weeks. I'm like, okay, that's a big concern. That truly can't happen. If it was that bad, then you definitely don't want to be dealing with that as an organization. You don't. Fair enough. But overall, from the Charania report, essentially, Chris Paul had been essentially vocalizing and displaying a number of different frustrations with other members of the organizations, their players, members of the coaching staff, etc. Calling them out and continuing to just display not necessarily conduct, but just operating in such a way that the team felt was detrimental to their progress. That's essentially what the report said. And still, even if that's the case, really good point that was also brought up by Kenny, and just from a logical sense, you dealt with it for what would be Chris Paul's longest stop at 7 years already. Even in Houston, even if you weren't tuned in all the way to their games, of course, you're trying to focus on yourself as a team. But you mean to tell me that for a person who you spent countless hours with, at least, definitely some of those people who have been in the organization for around that exact same time. I can't say that every single person in this current regime was also there when Chris Paul was on the team. That would be a pretty crazy assumption to make. But a good number of people should understand that that is exactly who Chris Paul is. He's a seasoned veteran. He has already reached the 40-year-old mark. His ass is not going to start playing fucking patty cake with the damn teammates. He's not going to start talking nice to them when that is not the way he's ever really operated at this point. He'll definitely have those kinds of reactions. Honestly, the fucking meme with him literally laughing, chuckling at Steph Curry or looking at his direction as it's happening, and then him literally cutting into the meanest look, the most devious look back imaginable. That is his personality at this point. That's been the case. So he's just supposed to start sucking up to everybody now? In fact, as a guy who's going to fill out more of a mentorship role with this team, and who is not getting the minutes, it's probably going to get even worse. But again, that had to be an expectation. You didn't see that coming? And then on another note, and I'll cap it off there, it's like, dude, I bet you this wouldn't be a problem if he was performing. Like, we've definitely had situations where that has gone down. We literally saw John Morant be suspended for conduct detrimental to the team by literally just having disdain for the way he was being utilized late and expressing his frustration with the coaches in an interview. Like, this is something that happens a lot, but you'd probably sweep it under the fucking rug if Chris Paul was actually out there performing. I can guarantee you, even if it's not being reported, that other players in that organization are having that exact same conversation, centering around the whole organization and just how dysfunctional it is looking right now, just how out of sorts it truly is. And you have a player in there who's been around it long enough, seeing that something is going wrong here, and trying to impose some accountability in there. That was another component of the report from Shams Charania. There's nothing wrong with that. There's truly nothing wrong with that. But I guess maybe the Clippers are still just not done cycling through everything at this point. I mean, like, oh boy. Like, some of the decisions in the roster construction over the last few years have been fair. You probably did need to move on from Paul George. But again, that was a self-inflicted wound. You chose to ask for Paul George initially in that deal, and look at where that got you. Right? The stuff going on with Kawhi Leonard. Also, plausible deniability. Steve Ballmer was duped, allegedly. Kawhi Leonard knew nothing about a free $28 million. Allegedly. Again, if they're not guilty of that, okay. Because again, this aspiration thing is still going on, despite all of the other news we're hearing about this team. That is still going on right now. And that has not been lost on people. But again, he was duped. If you did actually do this, I guess it would be difficult for you to come out and say it. But, like, that is the point here. And then this is just the latest thing. Like, it's evident to the entire team that there is something clearly wrong here. And at that point, if it is true that Tyronn Lue didn't speak to him for several weeks, you don't think other players at all would step up and say something to one of these members directly about it? I could tell you that James Harden is having the same conversations, especially if the sentiment is that he is literally the last hope for the NBA to save the chances of the Thunder getting a first overall pick or a top 3 pick from happening. That's how crazy it's gotten for the Clippers right now. They've buried themselves into this proverbial hole. And yet, when you have other people calling it out, rather than try to learn from it, you're just going to part ways with them. And absolutely nobody is safe from it, not even a player who is regarded as one of the best to ever do it, if not the best player to ever do it for your organization by many fans, especially in that area of the nation. Like, that's just tremendously fucked up. Like, at this point, you would hate for that to be the way that his career ends. Chris Paul's definitely had a bit of a polarizing personality. Like, it can, definitely come off as aggressive to some people. I don't think that's a secret. But at the end of the day, man, like, he's been a tremendous teammate for that much time. Even with all of that being placed against him as a sort of crime or something, he doesn't deserve to go out like that. Especially when you look at what some of the other players who are younger than him already out of the league and doing randomness. Chris Paul has kept the basketball the entire time. And one of his key points was also to be around family. He and them had to find out through other forums and then learn collectively through social media that his career, as far as we know right now, is done. That's truly bad. It's just not hard to see if that kind of stuff is going on. It's not hard to see why the Clippers are in this position right now. It just isn't. And in a way, like, that's how you're treating people, then you don't deserve to be in a winning spot. When your organization is that shitty behind the scenes and below the surface. You just don't. I'd hate for anybody else on the team to have to deal with that too. But again, like, you're really just trying Chris Paul. Like I said, like, James Harden is having these same conversations, bro. These same conversations. But you definitely would not, for a number of different reasons. More than likely, you're not going to even bother suspending James Harden for conduct detrimental to the team. You're not going to even think about cutting him because you tremendously fucked yourself up. Jeez. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.